Hey guys, it's Khadroth again. So today we're going to be covering QP management for this guide. Now, I don't expect this one to be very long. It's probably going to be on the shorter end as far as these guides go, and that's because I'm an accountant. I'm in the middle of tax season right here, so I wanted one that would be nice and quick and easy, and this one was one of the requested ideas from one of the viewers, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So first up, some basics on QP. As you guys now know, QP is used to enhance just about everything in the game. It is used in enhancing your servants' levels, their skills. It's used in leveling up your craft essences. It's a very prized commodity. The limitation for how much QP you can have at any given time is 999,999,999. So basically 1 QP short of a billion. You might think that that's impossible to hit, but I hit it fairly regularly on both my NA whale account as well as my JP cheap to play / free to play account. It is certainly possible to hit cap, and how that is done primarily is farming. But the important thing to understand about the QP is that limitations there is that you can't ever acquire too much of it. It forces you to keep playing the game, and it forces you to kind of plan out and project how you want to spend your QP. I'm going to say that most people probably run into the reverse problem, which is the lack of QP, hence the reason for this video. But the other problem does exist, what we call QP hell, and or in this case, reverse QP hell, which is getting too much QP and kind of getting locked. Now, reverse QP hell is a thing of the past. It doesn't actually exist anymore on either server, and that's because changes have come to the NA server that allow you to burn stuff even if you're at the QP cap. But that's basically what reverse QP hell was, is you were not able to burn when you were at the cap, and you ended up in a situation where eventually your inventory filled up if you didn't do anything about it. So if your inventory got full, you couldn't run a node and you couldn't burn anything at that point. So you had to find a way to deal with your QP. And there were a number of other ways, particularly very wasteful spending of your QP, but we're going to get into how to prevent wasteful spending in this guide. So don't expect too much on reverse QP hell here. I will say though, because this whole guide will be about saving QP, that if you're in reverse QP hell, all you need to do is take the tips and tricks here and reverse them. Basically, instead of trying to be as efficient as possible with your QP, do the opposite and try to be as wasteful as you can so that you get yourself out of that scenario. But in reality, like I said, because reverse QP hell isn't a thing, for the majority of you guys, it's just going to be about finding a good outlet for your QP that's not wasteful. But that can be hard for certain people, especially if they're resource locked or don't really have craft essences they want to level up or something like that. So number one on the list of things that you can do to manage your QP is going to be using craft essence bombs to level your craft essence. So what I mean when I say this is, don't just be throwing craft essences straight into the craft essence you want to level. Instead, use the CE bombing technique, for which I have a guide as well on this channel if you guys want to check that out. I'll put the link in the description. But essentially, the thing to understand about this is, and why it's wasteful for QP if you don't do this, is because as you level stuff up in this game, the cost of leveling something is dependent upon not the level or rarity of what you're putting in, but rather the level of the object getting leveled. That is to say, this craft essence here at level 6, it's gonna cost the same amount no matter the rarity here to enhance it, regardless of what I'm putting in. So I could put a 5-star CE in and it would still only cost this 150. The factor instead that's getting considered, just so that you guys can understand, is the level of the CE I'm already trying to level. So as you guys can see here, as I put this one in, now all of a sudden, because this is level 43, it costs 816. So the cost is more than tripled. You'll notice too, due to the exponential leveling curve, that basically the deeper in you go, the much more experience it takes to level up a craft essence. And this is why craft essence bombing is a thing. It's so efficient because you can power something straight up to max level with taking these CE bombs and just pushing it right there in one quick enhancement. rather than throwing stacks of 20 in repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again, which begins to pile up and cost you a whole lot of QP. So like I said, if you haven't ever checked out a Craft Essence Bomb guide, please go do that. That is the #1 way to save QP with regards to craft essences. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about here, and number 2 on our list, is going to be very similar to the Craft Essence Bomb pointer, and that's going to be involving leveling your servants. As you guys level your servants throughout the game, you'll notice there's no bombing technique like there was with craft essences. There's no way to get a vast sum of it. You do get super and great success chances to proc and get you additional experience, but there's no actual bombing technique to save you cost. But the same principle holds true, where the level of the servant we're leveling is what's going to determine the cost of the enhancement. So as we're throwing embers in, the higher level the servant gets, the more costly the enhancement gets and the more embers it's going to take. And because of this is why I often advise people, hey, maybe don't use all your embers. So to point out what I mean here is, as we get in here, you guys can see the actual amount of enhancement of, say, a gold ember is typically going to be 3 times the amount of enhancement of a silver ember. And that's important. Why? Because they both cost the same to enhance. So you can see 9,000 there and still 9,000 here. There's no difference despite the rarity, and it's why we will often advise people to go after using gold embers, so your 4-star and 5-star embers, because they are that much more efficient versus using, say, silver and bronze embers. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys that you should almost never use bronze embers unless you're absolutely, utterly desperate. You should always burn bronze embers. Silver embers is a little bit more up for debate. Personally, I'm at the point in both my accounts statuses where I can basically say, yes, burn all silver embers. But early on, especially in your account's life, you may struggle a little bit. You may need to kind of level some servants up. So using silver embers isn't the worst thing in the world. However, I will say that you do get mana prisms out of burning them, so there is another benefit to that as well. But if you're going to use silver embers, my advice, use them early in the enhancement of a servant. That is to say, in the first 30 to 40 levels. Do not use them later into the servant's enhancement stages, as again, you're spending triple the amount of silver embers per gold, and it's still costing you the same cost, so it's tripling your cost. This is an easy way to save QP when you guys need it. And again, it's not the worst sin in the world to use these things, but it's the general advice that you probably focus on the golds rather than the silvers and the bronzes. All right, so for our third point here, we're going to talk about leveling your servant skills. When it comes to QP management, and again, I just produced another guide here on the priorities for leveling a servant skills, but I'll point out here Bedivier's second skill. It's a great example. So this second skill gives Bedivere 30% charge. It's a really, really nice skill. However, this skill does not scale by leveling it. And so an important factor in saving QP can be prioritize your skills. Or rather, don't waste QP leveling up non-essential skills that don't necessarily scale well and are worth your resources early on. Later into the game, especially if you're in that reverse QP hell like we talked about, you're actually looking for these sorts of skills that you maybe skipped over before now. But for most people who have trouble managing their QP, they're going to definitely want to not fast track these things. They're going to want to put them on the back burner and wait until they have a plethora of resources and not really have to worry about investing in that skill and running out of QP when they have maybe another servant coming up that they're looking into that they're going to need to save QP for. So this can be another easy way to just handle your QP, is focus on stuff that's going to add damage, that's going to charge yourself as long as it scales, but not necessarily on skills that you don't think you're going to use that often, that maybe aren't fitting into how you play as a player, that sort of stuff. Try to fast track the things you want to invest in that you think are important, and not so much the skills that you don't find to be that useful or that often used. Now, for the next one, you guys can see here what's on the screen. So for point 4 here, we're going to say that Paleogenesis at the wrong time is probably not a good idea for you guys. So if you want to save QP, my advice is, for starters, if you're early in your account, account's history, don't grail anyone. The reason for that is because your resources are often better used fleshing out your account and leveling up a whole nother unit that can be useful to you, as opposed to grailing a waifu or husbando that you already have, where you're going to improve their capabilities by say 10% or something like that. It often, for resource purposes, tends to be a lot better to invest in a whole nother unit rather than a small upgrade to a unit that you love. Now, if you use the unit a lot, there's some good arguments to be made there, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that that's the general rule of thumb. Also understand that Paleogenesis, just like all the other things we talked about, does scale with the level. So again, if you're grailing a 4-star to say 90, that's going to cost you less than grailing a 5-star to 100. The other thing to point out is, again, the resources for grailing tend to almost double because of how much it's scaling. So going from 90 to 100 is going to take you way more embers than you would have otherwise thought, and pretty much does end up costing you another unit to level. And lastly, the point I'm going to make here as well is that there are better times to grail than others, and those tend to be the 2 times or 3 times super and great success chances. That'll stretch your embers further. That's going to get you a lot more. There can also be sometimes half cost enhancement opportunities where it's not going to cost you as much QP. Those all tend to be better times, or even again possibly in say a lotto. At that point, you're probably going to be overflowing a little bit more with QP and embers to do this. So it's why I'll tell you guys to try and plan out actually when you grail rather than just grailing on a whim. It'll also probably help you make better choices of how you want to grail rather than say grailing for gameplay when you decide later on down the line that you would have rather grailed for love. Talking about lottos, that's a good segue to our next part. Okay, so for my last point, I'm going to talk to you guys here a little bit about farming. Some of you guys are probably like, well, Cad, you said that you've reached, cap multiple times on your accounts. How did you manage that? Farming. There's really good farming opportunities out there in the game, especially this year, 2021 on NA. That is going to give you very good, vast amounts of QP. So that's what I do, is I try to prioritize those times for using my apples for stockpiling things, because I know that that's when I'm going to get a big influx, and they'll be when I target big expenditures as well. So like we were talking about before, the number one opportunity that I'm going to talk to you guys about is lottery events. I often see people do, 10, 20 boxes, 50 boxes even, and they call it a day. You're talking to someone right now that does 500 boxes regularly in lottos, and has been even before a lot of the quality of life that NA got. So there's a reason my account is as robust as it is on NA. There's a reason it's gotten to where it's been, and that is due to hard work and grinding and investing in it. If you want an account that looks like mine, you can get it, but it's going to require time and diligence, and it's going to require a little bit of planning as well. So this is why I push you guys more to that farming style of methodology, because it's what allows you to ultimately take your account to new heights. Every year we get 2 lottos. That's something you guys need to understand at minimum. There have been some years where we got more, but the 2 you can always count on are going to be the Fest event somewhere after the anniversary during the summer, and then the next one will always be at Christmas. So you guys can always count on those. They'll always be there. They will always be great for generating embers, QP, skill gems, mana prisms, and rare ascension materials. So it's a time period that I'm going to say that everyone needs to plan around, and everyone needs to see if they can farm as much as they can then. Real life does get in the way for people, so I completely understand not being able to go hard all the time, but it's something that you guys should always consider. Now, lottos aren't the only events that are good to farm though. There can be some other good opportunities, so I'm going to kind of talk to you guys about some of the ones that are coming especially this year. So chief amongst those is going to be raid events, or events with raids in them. Typically speaking, raids are very generous. Up on screen right now, you guys can see the Barbados raid that's going to be coming in the El Malloy Case Files event. It hasn't rerun yet on JP. Who knows, it might this year. The Barbados return was a very good event that a lot of people got a lot of mileage out of. Obviously, for starters, it has very good Ascension materials that can drop from it. But again, this raid can actually drop multiple of these big sums of QP here. So you guys can see, you guys can actually get up around 2 million QP per run. That's, again, as good as farming doors and stuff like that. So this can be a really good opportunity to get a lot of stuff that you need. So it'll both help you complete the event, as well as give you good drops, as well as give you good QP returns. So it's a way to kill two birds with one stone. So like I said, raid events can be really good. Another good one is going to be hunting quests. Hunting quests tend to return every single year at least once, although we have had one where I think JP's most recent year had multiple. An important thing, and we'll be getting some right here before Lost Belt 4 this year on NA, but hunting quests in general can be a good opportunity to farm. Why? Because especially with the one coming up here with Lost Belt 4, you guys can actually see, you guys can sometimes get a statue to spawn that will give you up to 2 million QP. So again, it's like running doors, only you also get a really good beneficial drop rate on the Ascension mat that drops in the node, as well as a little bit of gems, and get even some embers as well to help you out. So it's almost like running all your dailies at once. This is an important thing to keep track of. It's an important thing to make sure that maybe you consider how much you need the Ascension material or other things. And then on top of that, in general, there can also be good farming nodes in certain events. You're just going to have to keep your eyes peeled for those. I'm not going to bother going through them all. But the important thing to note is if you guys are diligent, if you guys do plan things out, and if you guys do kind of make sure that you grind at these moments, you'll be a lot better on QP. Even if you are somewhat wasteful in certain other categories, you'll be fine. And that's the thing I've pointed out. I've told people before, my current projections for the next 2 years have me needing somewhere around 4 billion QP. And I've had people's jaw drop with that and say that's so much. And I'm just like, oh no, I've got that easy. That's not going to be that hard to farm. And that's the important thing to understand, is part of that is coming from doing lottos, part of that is coming from grinding out these events when I need to. So keep that in mind. As long as you guys stick to these principles, you guys should be fine on QP. As long as you guys can think about your choices, you won't be as wasteful as long as you understand what you're doing. And that's the reason for these videos. Okay, one brief addendum here. So I didn't really talk about this, but I did want to mention it. Mona Lisa and Bella Lisa. These are two CEs that are really important to you guys for helping you guys preserve your QP, gain more QP, that sort of stuff. You guys will see this in the Rare Prism shop. I actually talk about these in the Rare Prism guide that I have out on the channel. You guys want to make sure that you acquire Mona Lisa and Bella Lisa as soon as possible. With regards to which one first, I'm always going to tell you guys to pick Mona Lisa because it gives you 10% effect for additional QP gained as long as you get MLB. That is opposed to Bella Lisa, which is actually not out as of the recording of this video right now on NA, and I'm hoping that Delightworks gets it to us soon. But Bella Lisa at MLB gives you 5%, and if you use a Friends who has it on support, you get 15. So it's more important for you to have Mona at the beginning for your account because it's just net more, since you can always take a Friends Bella Lisa once it is out on NA. Then later on, after you've acquired Mona Lisa, then you'll want to acquire your own Bella Lisa so that 1, you can get more friend points, and 2, you can get the additional 5%. With just 2 Mona Lisas, you'd normally only be able to get 20%, that is yours and a friend support. But with Bella Lisa getting added, now you can take your own Mona Lisa for 10%, as well as your own Bella Lisa getting you to 15, and then a friend's Bella Lisa with another 15. So that actually jumps us to 30% additional QP gain. So it's going to be really good for all those farming opportunities that we talked about, like the raids, the hunting quests, and even Summer 4 coming up this year, which is actually really good for QP. So do make sure that you guys acquire these, and they'll really help you out down the stretch. I will see you guys for the next one. Let me know what you guys want to see again. I did enjoy doing this one. This was a nice and quick and easy one. As always, guys, I stream on Twitch weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern, so you can catch me there. I'll put the link in the description below, and join the Discord. Same deal, it's the easiest way to get in touch with me. It's the easiest way to be a member of the community. Just make sure that you assign a role, otherwise the server will kick you. But it's really easy to do in the role request channel there at the top. So see you guys for the next one. Have a good day.